Okay, so a quick editor's note before the video begins. I just want to say thank you all so much for all of the love you showed on the Animal Farm video. I really genuinely expected it to get like 12 views because it was, 3 times as long as my normal videos, and it's not my normal sort of content. So thank you so much for all of the love. Also, we're monetized? Hello? So we're monetized now, and memberships will be opening up. I'll make a whole video on it. But this is literally like a dream that I've had since I was like 9, because I'm a computer baby. So thank you all so much. I am so overwhelmed with love for you, and I will make a video just about this. But I just wanted to thank you before we got started. Okay, back to the video. I talk a lot about children's TV channels on this channel. It's my bread and butter, it seems. I've talked about Vortex, 4Kids, Smile of a Child, and Cubo. But today I'm talking about one that has been requested by one single user on every single one of my videos. Sprout TV. Sprout TV was a channel beloved by children and adults alike, despite its many controversies. In the end, it didn't die like I thought it had, but was transformed. But we'll get to that. So let's start at the very beginning. Sprout TV was an iconic offshoot of PBS. In April of 2005, PBS, in conjunction with Sesame Street Workshop, Comcast Corporation, and HIT Entertainment, announced that they would be launching PBS Kids Sprout On Demand. This video-on-demand service debuted on Comcast, and in the fall of the same year, the 24/7 channel was aimed to be released. PBS Kids Sprout On Demand launched with the following shows: Sesame Street, Bob the Builder, Barney and Friends, Thomas and Friends, Angelina Ballerina, Sagwa the Chinese Siamese Cat, Caillou, the Berenstain Bears, JJ the Jet Plane, Teletubbies, and Dragon. The plan was for it to be free on Comcast markets with a VOD service, and then there'd be 50 hours of programs a month, with about 25% of them switched every 2 weeks to keep things fresh. It was sort of like streaming on demand before Netflix was a thing. It even included Spanish language programming for Barney, Bob the Builder, Angelina Ballerina, and a Spanish language adaptation of Sesame Street. The current article, PBS producers Comcast wed to create digital kids channel, by Karen Everhart, published on November 1st of 2004, discusses this merger. The digital cable service was apparently a renewed marriage vow between PBS and Sesame Street. This followed Sesame Workshop allowing Noggin to host Sesame Street for a period of a few years. In the article, they discussed that PBS, once partnered with HIT and Comcast, would gain access to shows like Barney and Friends and Bob the Builder, which was financially lucrative for all parties. However, both people in and outside of PBS were concerned about the introduction of advertisements. The whole article is actually pretty fascinating because it breaks down exactly how advertising worked. Some TV channels and broadcasters could choose their own advertisements within a set of guidelines, while others had to pick exactly what PBS, Comcast, and HIT wanted. Additionally, there was to be a lot of cross-promotion. It was apparently extremely hard to get proper funding for PBS in some cities, and the cable channels were making a fuss about having to pay for PBS Kids and not being able to include advertisements, which prompted this decision. Advertising, however, led to controversies. In fact, Sprout had a lot of controversies during its lifetime. Today, we wouldn't really consider them controversies, but apparently we were really bored in the early 2000s. But it seems that the first one is mentioned by Steve Rhodes. Photographer Steve Rhodes posted his image of the early Sprout launch in April of 2005 with the caption, "Sprout launch. Sprout, the new kids channel from Comcast, PBS, the Sesame Street Workshop, and HIT Entertainment has been controversial. Before a policy launch, I asked someone from the Association of Public Broadcasting Stations what their reaction of members was. He said they're divided before taking a call on his BlackBerry. Some stations have concerns. It looks like KQED will be promoting the channel." The word controversial is linked here, and when I first wrote the script, the link was broken and the Wayback Machine didn't have an archive of it. But when I began editing, I double-checked, and oh my gosh, it was available. The word controversy connected to Current.org's March 14th, 2005 article, "Stations Weigh What They'd Get and Give Up" by Karen Everhart. The article talks about how the PBS On Demand was set up to work and how channels would get incentives. To benefit from the promo deal, stations must waive their rights to broadcast shows for preschool-aged children on their new DTV channels. A problematic decision for many stations that raised digital conversion money by saying they'd put educational kids' fairs on DTV. PBS plans to develop next year a new channel for school-age kids that could help fill that gap. Stations could wait for that to launch, or, if they opt out of the marketing deal for the new cable channel, they could put together their own preschool channels for DTV multicasts by repeating PBS Kids shows with remaining unused broadcast rights. Despite its controversial status in the world of children's programming before it even existed, PBS Kids Sprout did launch, according to the Animation World Network, on September 26, 2005. The channel featured thematic programming blocks that followed the day of a preschooler. The morning would feature upbeat, stimulating shows that featured activity. Lunchtime was common learning themes, and the evening block was soothing, relaxing shows. Kevin and Melanie were the first members of the Sprout on-air family. These segments would play between shows to create a safe and nurturing environment. Kevin was the birthday host and would share viewer-submitted birthday celebrations, while Melanie was the bedtime host and would play games, do arts and crafts, and tell stories. Put a little pin in that one. Melanie's gonna be really important later. This was also when the Sprout website launched at sproutletsgrow.com. The website was cute, interactive, had games, what's on TV, information, affiliates and advertisers, and much more. And honestly, when I make these videos, sometimes I get like a little nostalgic, but I don't get like the overwhelming wave of nostalgia. Looking at the old Sprout website really digs up some sort of deep-seated nostalgia in me, and man, I wish we could go back. Despite a fantastic lineup, lots of shows, an adorable website, and much more, it wasn't too long after their launch that the advertisement controversy grew tremendously. In our current day and age, it isn't unusual for there to be so many advertisements. In fact, it's our biggest gripe with everything, and it is what is pushing people back to physical media. We are inundated with ads. They're in our fridges. Ew! But apparently, in the early 2000s, it wasn't so much of a problem. The CIT Insider article, PBS Sends a Sloth into Competitive World of Children's TV, discusses how in 2005, there were more than just PBS for people to watch. Noggin, Nick Jr., Cartoon Network, and Playhouse Disney were all contenders. The Little Einsteins, Blue's Clues, and Dora the Explorer were shaking up what children's TV shows were. Viewers were no longer passive, they were interacting with what they were watching. This created a power struggle that PBS tried to remedy by introducing PBS Kids Sprout. But people were unhappy that PBS was underwriting announcements and advertisements that felt like thinly veiled promotions. These advertisements were for things like Huggies diapers and McDonald's, what we generally find inoffensive today. But in 2005, it left parents feeling very sketched out since they were used to channels without advertisements for kids. This article was published on October 18th of 2005, little more than 2 weeks after Sprout launched. So, not a good look, I guess. Also, the reason the title is talking about a sloth is because apparently PBS Kids Sprout was launching a big, big world, hoping that the sloth could contest with the other popular shows on different channels. Ruben, a longtime subscriber of the channel, asked why Dish TV refused to associate with PBS Kids Sprout. And while I can't make any firm confirmations because there was never any press releases, secondhand evidence seems to state that it was because of the advertising stuff. On DBS Talk, a man named Darkman, a real VIP OG, kind of chronicled the reasons as to why Dish TV would not air Sprout TV. It appears that because of PBS no longer being part of the FTA, having advertisements and having restrictions on advertisements and what could be shown, some places like Dish TV just wanted nothing to do with them. Despite these initial concerns, PBS Kids Sprout had a pretty good launch. In fact, they added more shows to their lineup at the end of October, according to the Wayback Machine capture of the site. In addition to the titles that were both on demand and on the channel, they had Zaboomafoo, Big Sister and Little Brother, Pingu, Make Way for Naughty, Kipper, and James the Cat. In November of 2005, they also added Booba in the mornings. In December, they removed Booba, and then Booba returned in 2006. That show in particular seemed to float on and off the schedule. Things would go smoothly from then on until 2006, which is barely a year in. In May of 2006, they confirmed they would be renewing The Goodnight Show with Melanie. We're taking the pin out of that thought. We've gotten there. In the multi-channel news article published on May 4th of 2006, PBS Kids Sprout, to say goodnight again, they say that the show would return, this time with the new co-host Star. This would begin in July and include children's yoga, Spanish, and sign language segments. This was good news. Programming was successful, parents and kids were enjoying it. You might even remember these segments because when I saw the name Star, I got this brain blast of a little plushy guy. So you probably recall it to some extent. So, why did we have a pin in Melanie? Was there another controversy? Yes. Okay, well, what was the controversy? That we got another season of a kids show? Yeah, yes and no. But despite technically being too young to be able to remember it outright, I do have a recollection of this event. On July 25th, 2006, Melanie Martinez, not that one, the host of The Goodnight Show, was fired. Before Melanie Martinez ever worked for PBS, she appeared in 2 spoof videos called Technical Virgins. These videos were sexual in nature, and due to my excellent ability to sleuth on the internet, I did find one of them. It's actually not really offensive. It's kind of good, kind of wholesome. It talks very simply about using self-pleasure tools instead of having sex. I don't know, it's not a big deal, you know? Anyways, it was purely a spoof. It was not actually anything pornographic. Technical Virgin website was also just a spoof website. But according to Today, Melanie Martinez made the network aware that the videos existed and they canned her. Which is really rude. According to Sandy Wax, the network president, PBS Kids Sprout has determined that the dialogue in the video is inappropriate for her role as a preschool program host and may undermine her character's credibility with our audience. As they tried to figure out what to do about The Goodnight Show, they played more cartoons in the interim. This event was reported worldwide. So, how did the public of 2006 respond? We've already touched on some controversies that don't feel like controversies. Did everyone really dogpile on this? Did they agree that the woman who made satirical sexual videos should be fired, even if those acts were 7 years prior? Well, fascinatingly enough, it did seem that they were split. The technicalvirgins.com website updated to a white screen insisting that Melanie Martinez be reinstated and offering a link to a petition. The PBS Ombudsman also had opinions on this. The PBS Ombudsman were editorial journalists that were established in 2005 to further clarify the governing principles of PBS, to keep pace with changes in journalism and technology, and to better reflect the roles and responsibilities of producers, PBS, local public television stations, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting in the development and distribution of public television content. The Ombudsman were headed by Michael Gettler, a veteran journalist with over 45 years of reporting. According to Michael Gettler and the PBS Ombudsman, in an article published on August 3rd, 2006 titled More About Melanie, he mentions that he had previously lightly touched on the firing after a very long article about the Middle East. Gettler says that he received several hundred emails, about 250, with only one supporting the Sprout decision, and some 1,700 to PBS viewer services, with about 6 of them supporting the decision. Additionally, there were more than 5,000 people who signed the online petitions opposed to the decision to remove her and demanding that she be given her job back. Gettler questions whether or not Melanie had been given a chance to disclose that she was in these videos during her initial interview, based on something said by PBS President Kurger. An article in the Los Angeles Times on July 27th reported that PBS President Kurger, who was on the West Coast at the time and was asked about this, said that Martinez had not disclosed her work in the videos when she was first interviewed for Kids Sprout and only revealed it once they were online. She also said that Martinez would likely have not been hired if the network knew about these videos to begin with. Gettler also mentions that PBS has been touted as champions of free speech and expression. His article reads, "It struck me as ironic that the very time PBS is fighting against Federal Communications Commission's rulings about indecency that the network argues will inhibit documentary filmmakers and freedom of speech, It delivers a subjective punishment to a popular performer for having done something several years ago that was clearly a spoof. To me, it is too much of a whiff of after-the-fact loyalty oaths and purity checks on performers who do lots of different things. PBS has won many plaudits in the press for its strong stance against constraints on freedom of expression in its pursuit of powerful, realistic, and important documentary work. I have no doubt that had they acted differently in the case of Martinez, they probably would have attracted a lot of criticism. But I think they would have had a lot of backers, and added to the feeling many people that they had, in this case, stood up for something that was important but less easy to defend. Other people were offended for the wrong reasons. For example, the absolute clown of a man named Tim Nudd, who wrote the article Bring Melanie Back for Dad's Sake on Adweek. In his article, he writes, "The consensus among dads I know that Melanie is, in a word, hot. Probably because of the way she says chugga chugga before introducing a Thomas the Tank Engine video."
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I would like Tim Nudd to know that if I ever encounter him, it is on sight. Melanie Martinez was replaced with Michelle Lepe, or Nina, who was a far more recognizable host due to her longevity. This replacement occurred in late 2006 and was announced in November. The show relaunched on December 18th, 2006 on PBS Kids Sprout. By PBS Kids Sprout's first birthday, they had reached 20 million households, according to Animation World Network. Sprout had also been apparently racking up awards. According to the same article, Sprout had been recognized for excellence in programming and marketing with 5 Telly Awards, 7 Promax BDA Awards, and 2 Mark Awards. And its Q score in August of 2006, which measured familiarity and appeal to children, outranked all other kids' networks, including Disney, among moms of kids ages 2 to 5. And Sprout was the #1 on-demand kids service with over 100 million VOD orders. But the disdain for the commercials was continuing to grow. In August 11th, 2006, Underwriters, Corporate Funders, and Non-Commercial Public Television by McGill-Gettler was published. Federal funding supplied only 25% of PBS's funding, so Kathy Hogan, PBS's Senior Director of Programming Underwriter Policy, said they needed an additional funding from commercials. Some of the letters that Gettler received were so bold as to claim that PBS should drop Sprout entirely because it had to use commercials. As I watch Sprout, I see commercials, something that I shouldn't be seeing on a PBS channel, says Christy Hunter from Arkansas. Robert Stewart from New Mexico declared, "I am a regular viewer of PBS and I appreciate what it has done over the years. Here it comes, wait for it. However, I am very displeased with all of the commercials that are popping up on PBS." Despite this, however, PBS Kids Sprout continued to thrive and celebrated their first birthday. To celebrate that birthday, they debuted Jakers, The Adventures of Piggly Winks. They guest starred Noelle McNeil, an Emmy-nominated veteran of children's television, as Leo on The Goodnight Show, and Sprout Diner, a show designed to help kids eat healthy food, launched a week after their birthday. Fun fact, Leo played Bear in Bear in the Big Blue House. However, despite their huge successes, PBS Kids Sprout still had one more small controversy before the end of the year. In December, the Chicago Tribune posted an article, New Host for The Goodnight Show, in which they talk about the hiring of Michelle Lepe. Michelle Lepe played an undercover cop posting as a prostitute in a movie called Jamaica Hotel. But according to PBS spokeswoman Jenny Glenn, they knew what Lepe was in, so everything was fine. She also declared it wasn't a controversy. Quote, "We have not received one phone call or email about this so-called controversy," Glenn said. On December 12th, it was declared that the Jim Henson Group would be launching the award-winning preschool series The Hoobs on Christmas, starting with the Happy Hoobie Holidays Marathon. This show was originally launched in the UK in 2000. By December, they had all of the previously mentioned shows with the addition of Jakers, Say It with Naughty, Fireman Sam, and the premiere of A Sesame Street Christmas Carol. In January of 2007, the website URL changed from Sprout Let's Go to Sprout Online. I'm not sure why they changed it. I literally cannot find it anywhere. But the website also got a facelift. And man, is this website charming. 2007 was a quiet year for Sprout. In June, the Wandamatic blog posted Ava Thursday, Ava on Sprout. The Wandamatic blog was run by a man named Ward Jenkins, who worked for the Primal Screen when it first launched. His company did the aesthetics and transitions for the website. The blog post is about how his 6-year-old daughter, Ava, had her artwork featured on the ID Arts and Crafts. This is adorable and delightful. Ward Jenkins is a true man and Tim Nudd is not. In the year 2007, they also launched the Musical Morning segment, the Sunny Side Up segment, the Play With Me segment, Bounce Let's Talk, a musical show created to aid autistic children, Caillou's Holiday Movie, and Bob the Builder's A Christmas to Remember. On January 31st, 2008, the article Watchin' the Noggin, For-Profit, Non-Profit Book Co-Ventures and Children's Television by Steve Klassen was posted to flowjournal.org. Klassen creates the case both for and against advertising on PBS Kids Sprout. Although he understands the need for commercials to continue broadcasting, he compares PBS Kids Sprout to Noggin, which was a 24-hour channel with no commercials. He also explains that most of these shows, like Between the Lions, Dragon Tales, and Reading Rainbow, were created by both a nonprofit and for-profit company. And the article shows that 3 years later, the question of advertising to children was still front of mind. In 2008, Barney and Friends was one of the most downloaded shows on PBS Kids Sprout on-demand video service. Barney was so large, despite getting as much hate as I remember him getting, that Barney performed the Big Purple Bus Tour, where they stopped at Toys R Us stores to meet and greet with children. In April of 2008, Sprout announced that it would be moving the Let's Go show to the weekend afternoons and starting the Sprout Sharing show. It consisted of hand puppets viewing preschooler-submitted videos of their talents. They would also perform songs submitted by viewers. In April, they also premiered Pick Me, a show that used 2D flash animation created by Jam Media, which gave parents the ability to superimpose a picture of their child onto an animated character. This allowed them the chance to be a character in the Pick Me show, which included animal friends. The pictures were chosen each week at random. In 2008, they added the shows Fifi and the Flower Tots, Dive Ollie Dive, Franny's Feet, Rory the Racing Car, and Jim Henson's Pajanimals. Not to be confused with the PJ Masks, like I always do. Finally, they added Frances, a Jim Henson digital animated show about badgers based on the books by Russell Hoban. In March of 2009, PBS Kids Sprout encountered yet another controversy. Is this controversy serious at all? No. Not to compare to what goes on today. Remember the Goodnight Show? The first thing that got them in hot water? And then again? Well, it's back and causing problems once more. Harvard psychologist Susan Lin, who ran the Campaign for a Commercial-Free Childhood, asked PBS Kids Sprout to get rid of the Goodnight Show. She accused the show of trying to keep kids awake as opposed to helping them fall asleep, despite the story times, the calming music, and the sleep hygiene. Should it have ran for 3 hours? Maybe not. But running a show from 6 to 9 p.m. to help children sleep or give exhausted parents a little more time to finish a glass of water wasn't that bad of an idea. Don't pretend that the reason you have programming is to help children sleep, Lynn said. Joni Meidel, a psychologist and sleep issues expert from St. Joseph's University, said that TV viewing at bedtime was detrimental to children. And this is true. Meidel said that her concern was also in parent-child time. It's sad to replace quality parent-child time with television. But she conceded that if something had to be on, The Goodnight Show was better than normal cartoons. The chief of PBS Kids Sprout, Sandy Wax, argued with both of these points, saying that they lived in the real world and wanted what was best for parents and children. This, again, was a really big deal. It was one thing to have a 24-hour channel, but it was another thing to have something considered for bedtime. But not everyone liked the suggestion from these experts. In fact, DaddyTypes.com blog had quite the scathing assumption of Lynn and Meidel's character. In the article, Goodnight Seagull, Goodnight Sprout, Goodnight Bedtime Television Going Balls Out, the author writes, as so-called researchers, pediatricians, cognitive development scientists, and neurologists stoke the fires of outrage and goad their nonprofit lackeys, the heartless, joy-killing communistic social activists to attack. Where can a worn-out parent turn when all she wants is to get a kid to sleep and to help him develop deep, long-lasting relationships with selfless characters? properties, brands, and advertisers, to her trusted lifelong and parenting ally, television. Once again, opinions were split, but nothing really came of it. In March, they announced that they would be adding Mighty Jungle, a live-action puppet series. In March, they also released an iPhone app. PBS Kids Sprout teamed up with New Wave Entertainment to make an app which allowed children to watch 3 to 4 minute clips of shows and where their parents could see the programming schedule. Additionally, they made the Dress Chica app. It was an extension of the Dress Chica game where kids could play dress up with the Sprouts bird mascot. You could make Chica dance, save pictures, add greetings, and email it to other people. The article about this app described the dress-up app as addictive, and I just loved this line so much because I know that Doug Nyo, the author of the article, perishes, turns to dust every time he sees an iPad kid. So before you download, make sure you let your kids use the iPhone with discipline. Otherwise, they might grow up more comfortable spending time with electronics and tiny screens than hanging out with real people. In 2009, Sprout also launched their YouTube channel. In November, Sesame Street celebrated 40 years on television. Up until this point, independent academic researchers had conducted more than 1,000 studies on Sesame Street, making it the most well-researched TV show in history. In addition to Mighty Jungle, they added Sprout's Wiggle Waffle, Rubba-Dubbers, The Wiggles, and Mama Mirabelle's Home Movies. Now, to 2010. Not a lot of stuff happened in 2010. There weren't any new controversies. The show Noodle and Doodle premiered on Sprout in September. This was to celebrate the milestone of a 5th birthday, and it was Sprout's first original series. It featured healthy recipes, crafts, and ways to recycle. Despite most of the controversies fizzling out, there was still some chatter about whether or not a 24-hour TV show was good for kids, or if TV was even good for kids. The New York Times article trying to echo childhood's rhythms implies that some shows, such as Sid the Science Kid, could just be substituted with a short lesson from a parent. It brings up talking points that are worth considering, but I feel is too judgmental of a TV channel as a substitute as opposed to like an addition. In 2010, they also began using the power of bloggers and the internet to do some fun things. The Eccentric Eclectic Woman blog hosted a giveaway for the Sprout Let's Grow Safety First DVD, which included several episodes of shows like Barney, Bob the Builder, and were all centered around keeping you safe in your home, during play, and out in the world. The disc was available for $13.49, but Sprout also had bloggers like the Eccentric Eclectic Woman host giveaways for copies. This was part of Sprout's Band of Bloggers. The Band of Bloggers was a group of moms that blogged about community, parenting, and were partnered with Sprout. There were 49 bloggers in 2010, and although it was described as mom bloggers, there was one dad named Buck. These bloggers and blog articles were listed under Sprout for parents. Beyond Noodle and Doodle, Nina's Little Fables replaced Make Way for Naughty, and Dirt Girl World, Monkey See, Monkey Do, Chloe's Closet, Driver Dan Story Train, and What's Your News were added to the lineup of shows. In 2011, people seemed to really love PBS Kids Sprout website. They called it an online playground. It was praised for being almost entirely ad-free and not sending spam to parents' emails. The Sprout website had games, coloring pages, videos, music recipes, birthday card creation, and more. The site was also praised for being easy for little ones to use since they can't really read. I miss this website. I miss it. They also had an app which could be used on the iPhone, iPad, or iTouch, which was apparently the original name for the iPod Touch. Along with the trend of PBS Kids Sprout and blogs, Denisha Pratt, the host of Sunny Side Up show, was invited onto the Curly Nikki blog to talk about her curly hair and how she took care of it. In October of 2011, PBS Kids Sprout filmed the Super Sproutlet show in Havertown, Pennsylvania. They also filmed a few things for the Sunny Side Up show at Evesham Park in South Jersey. In November, Sprout teamed up with iSight to create microsites and some more of the charming ad promos, including a Glad promo with Ants at a Picnic and Lego Duplo creations. Unfortunately, the weird lusting after TV show hosts didn't stop in 2011, by the way. On 24/7 Sports, someone posted Hot or Not Parents Edition Sprout TV hostesses, and this was a 37-comment conversation that I will not show you. Because I am sick. You all sicken me. By 2011, they had a lot of shows. The complete lineup was Sprout's Wiggly Waffle, Sunny Side Up Show, Sprout Sharing Show, Good Night Show, Angelina Ballerina, Barney and Friends, Berenstain Bears, Bob the Builder, Caillou, Chloe's Closet, Dirt Girl World, Dive Ollie Dive, Doggities, Driver Dan's Story Train, Fifi and the Flower Tots, Fireman Sam, Frammy's Feet, Kipper, Lazy Town, Mama Mirabelle's Home Movies, Monkey See, Monkey Do, Nina's Little Fables, Noodle and Doodle, Play With Me Sesame, Poppy Cat, Rory the Racing Car, Rubba-Dubbers, Sesame Street, Super Y, The Let's Go Show, The Mighty Jungle, The Pajanimals, Thomas and Friends, What's Your News, and Zaboomafoo. In 2012, DHX Media, who produced some things that were available on Sprout, made a deal with Netflix to allow them to stream 3 of their preschool shows. This didn't really affect Sprout, but I just want to remind you all that Netflix used to be available on the Xbox 360, the Nintendo Wii, the PS3, and the iPod Touch. Just in Time premiered on April 22nd for Earth Week, adding that show to their lineup. First Lady Michelle Obama filmed a Let's Move PSA with Sporticus of Lazytown and Chica of Sunny Side Up in June. Oh man, I miss the good old days. PBS Kids actually did a lot of stuff with the Obama family, and that was kind of neat. In 2012, unfortunately, more men were having the audacity to publicly salivate over children's TV show stars. You guys are so weird. The Super Sproutlet show debuted in 2012, which was hosted by Lazytown Sporticus. It was all about the importance of being active and healthy and kind to the earth. In November, they released The Chica Show, which was a spin-off of the Sunny Side Up show about the beloved chicken, Chica. That's the one from the dress-up game. Chica was also part of the Macy Day Parade Sprout Float. During this time, their lineup changed slightly, adding the Super Sproutlet show, Just in Time, 64 Zoom Lane, Wibbly Pig, Oliver the Ostrich, and removing Mama Mirabelle's Home Movies. The New York Times also reported that NBC Universal was teaming up with Sprout to help with its growth. Because of this, Dish Network and Cablevision continued to decline the channel. They also reported that despite the rapid growth, there still weren't the audiences that Nickelodeon and Disney Junior had, but that their website and Facebook strategies were an integral part of their model. This merger with NBC Universal is also when PBS Kids Sprout simply changed to Sprout. And in 2013, things began to shift. In May, Sprout landed a distribution deal with Cablevision Systems Corp., a large pay TV operator for the New York City area. They also announced plans for Ruff, Tweet, and Dave, a preschool game show that used an iPad or smartphone to play along. The article from the Los Angeles Times also mentions that Sprout was decidedly not selling shows to Netflix, unlike competitors Nickelodeon and their show SpongeBob SquarePants, because they were afraid of ratings dropping, which I think is fairly reasonable. In July, they acquired 3 new programs, Sarah and Duck, Zoo, and Stella and Sam. It was also in July that Sprout launched their Sprout Host Hunt. Sprout was searching for another host for the Sunny Side Up show. Participants were to sing the Sprout Happy Birthday song and submit it. Sprout selected the most notable videos for their YouTube channel, giving fans the chance to participate and vote. There was also a live event in Los Angeles on August 23rd. The Sprout Host Hunt winner was decided in December. The winners were Isablis Payan, Daryl Williams, a former airman, and Emily Borromeo, who starred in other shows including Netflix's Sirens. In 2013, they launched the Sprout Shop. The Sprout Shop allowed parents to purchase stuffed animals, shirts, tote bags, and more of their kiddos' Sprout characters. But on Wednesday, November 13th, everything changed. And for many people, that would be what they would consider the beginning of the end. On November 13th, 2013, NBC Universal increased its stake to full ownership of Sprout. It joined the lineup of other NBC Universal cable entertainment portfolio channels, which included USA, Sci-Fi, E!, Bravo, Oxygen, and Esquire Network. By the end of 2013, Sprout's website was less cute and much more modern. I had to go to 4 different pages to try and find the TV schedule. And there seemed to be no new shows except for Tree Fu Tom. In November of 2014, they announced more TV on demand with Sprout Now. Sprout Now was a mobile app that allowed subscribers to access content anywhere. In April, First Lady Michelle Obama visited the folks at Sprout again. She joined Chica on the Sunny Side Up show to sing the Happy Birthday song and show off her dance moves as a part of the Let's Moves initiative's 5th anniversary. In July of 2014, Sprout launched Astroblast. The show was based on books by Bob Kohler and featured smoothie-drinking animals on a space station. As a part of the launch, they had a charity event in Central Park with a zero-gravity bungee jump. Additionally, they invited their mommy bloggers for a special sneak peek, complete with a luncheon and smoothies. In August, they announced the Sprout Channel Cubby Tablet. Folks who bought the Cubby Tablet between August 27th and September 1st would receive a $50 Voodoo credit code. The Sprout Cubby Tablet included 40 episodes of Sprout shows, 28 apps including a weather report and Dress Chica, the Crayola Color, Draw, and Sing app, crafts, recipes, printable coloring pages, 28 music videos, and a child-friendly browser. It was available for $99, which is about $135 in today's money. And honestly, I think that's a pretty good deal for a tablet that was like VTech-esque, that allowed children to access more than 10 hours of shows, a bunch of games, and even the internet if they really wanted. I think it was a really good deal. Especially with today's things that are simple and for kids but continue to require Wi-Fi and cost them more $1 billion. I think it's great. I'm looking at you, Tonys. I hate you. Why do you still need Wi-Fi? Work like a hit clip. Listen, if this channel ever gets monetized, I want a Sprout Channel Cubby tablet. I want it. I will buy one. Or someone can send one to me. Any of you want to send me a Cubby tablet? I don't even know where I could buy one of these, but I want one. Anyways, in addition to Astroblast and Ruff Ruff, Tweet, and Dave, there were 3 more original shows that premiered in 2014. There was Clangers, a stop-motion show hosted by William Shatner, Flugels, a live-action CGI hybrid about aliens, and Nina's World, which was based on the stories she mentioned in The Goodnight Show. Zerby Derby and Bo were also added at the end of 2014. By the end of 2014, Sprout faced another controversy. Another one? What is it this time? Were the tablets loaded with ads? Did they know that Emily Borromeo would be in Sirens? No, it's actually something that was like a little bit funny to me. On December 2nd of 2014, multi-platinum Grammy Award-winning artist Faith Evans appeared on the Sunny Side Up show. The issue was that she wore a shirt that kind of looked like a cigarette package design, even though it said California. Oh my gosh, the tweets were harsh in regards to this. And honestly, I think they just wanted to be mad and were possibly a little racist. Does it look a little bit like a cigarette package? Okay, maybe, I guess, but also it's a cute outfit that's appropriate for a kid's channel. Also around the same time, Structural Graphics made a Sprout digital frame media kit, and it's the cutest thing I've ever seen. It was a flower-shaped frame that came inside a hand-stitched felt pocket. The LCD screen contained images of cartoon characters, but also had a USB slot so you could display your own photos. Only 500 were ever made. If you have one, or you know someone who has one, or you know how to find one, I will buy it from you. Please, I want one so badly. And I can't find where to buy these things. I need one. 2015, Sprout started the year strong with the Mom is Here movement. Hashtag Mom is Here was a way to increase appreciation for mothers. The goal was for them to post pictures without filters or candids of them with their children, instead of pictures of just their children. Sprout gave away prizes to all moms who participated between April 11th and May 11th, which was Mother's Day. In August, Sesame Street announced a slight change to how they were operating. New episodes of Sesame Street would be released first on HBO to paid subscribers, then free for a little while later on Sprout. This decision was made because Sesame Street wasn't selling as many toys and needed to make up income. They also said that PBS had gotten so big that it was no longer a channel that does Sesame Street, but a channel that Sesame Street happened to be on. This would last for 5 years, with HBO getting exclusive access to the new episodes for 9 months. In 2015, they had another update to their website, and all of the hand-painted and carefully crafted charm of the original site vanished. It changed to a corporate look that I loathe entirely. By the end of 2015, they had added a common sense media rating to their TV schedule. Their lineup changed drastically, shedding most of their iconic and beloved older shows. The 2015 lineup was Astroblast, Bo, Caillou, Chloe's Closet, Clangers, Earth to Luna, Lazy Town, Lily's Driftwood Bay, Maya the Bee, Nina's World, Pajanimals, Poppycat, Ruff, Tweet and Dave, Sarah and Duck, Stella and Sam, Super Wings, Sydney's Sailboat, The Berenstain Bears, The Chica Show, The Goodnight Show, Sunny Side Up, Tree Foo Tom, Zoo, and Zerby Derby. In January of 2016, Sprout launched Flugels, and in July, they launched Terrific Trucks, a live-action series about trucks. I can't really find anything else that happened in 2016. In October, they had a blogger event for Dot, a show about a girl using technology, based on the books by Randy Zuckerberg. Yes, Mark Zuckerberg's sister. The bloggers were given, fun milkshakes and a sneak peek at the show, which would air in October. And at the end of November, they had a Holidays Unwrapped party at Universal Studios. This was to help introduce their holiday programming and included an indoor ice rink, live performances from Sprout characters like Chica and Hot Chocolate. The debut holiday shows were Terrific Trucks Save Christmas, Nina's World Hanukkah Adventure, Ruff, Tweet and Dave A Christmas Adventure, Naughty Toyland Detective The Case of the Snow Mystery, and Dot the Holiday Tree. By the end of 2016, the new shows that were added were Flugels, Naughty Toyland Detective, Furchester Hotel, Jungle Bunch, The New Little People, Doozers, and Yaya and Zook. In 2017, the final change to Sprout would happen, which would leave behind every remaining shred of charm from PBS Kids. In March of 2017, Nina announced that The Goodnight Show would no longer be a part of the TV channel lineup, but instead would be on the on-demand menu. This would allow parents to choose the bedtime for their children. Now, you might say, that's weird. Why would they do that? It's been, so many years since the original Controversy. Well, it's because on May 1st, they announced that Sprout Kids would grow up into NBCU's Universal Kids. Universal Kids was going to aim to broaden programming so that it appealed to children ages 2 to 11. Not only that, but they would be housing a wide range of DreamWorks animation content, which they had acquired in August of 2015 for approximately $3.8 billion. They planned to launch All Hail King Julian, Dragons Riders of Berk, and Top Chef Jr. The plan was to create the Universal version of the Disney Channel. Part of this change was prompted by people cutting cable. Netflix was huge. No one wanted to pay for cable, and Sprout wasn't free like PBS Kids had been. And Sprout was only reaching 59 million homes, while Nickelodeon almost doubled that with 90 million. They were seeing the fall of many other channels as well, including Disney Channel, Disney XD, and Cartoon Network. NBC's plan was to host cartoons on their own channel alongside Sprout offerings, allow on-demand watching, and produce cartoons for the streaming services like Netflix that were shooting up in popularity. Additionally, they planned to add shows like The Nowhere Boys, Little Lunch, The Next Step, and Hank Zipzer. And that is the end of PBS Kids Sprout. To summarize the journey, it was designed as a competitor for other children's channels that were doing far better than PBS Kids was. And despite controversies throughout its entire existence, the channel did about half as well as others like Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network, and had some staying power due to being partnered with Jim Henson and company. But as times changed and NBC eventually purchased them out, they fell to the wayside, quietly becoming Universal Kids and losing all of the unique identity that made them beloved to so many for so many years. And that is the rise and fall of PBS Kids Sprout. I will make a Universal Kids video for their rise and fall, but man, this video was long enough. This gave me all of the feels and all of the nostalgia, and I'm kind of sad, and I sort of wish we could go back. Bring me back to the Sprout TV days. Tell me, what was your favorite Sprout TV show? Do you miss the old aesthetics? Because, oh my gosh, I do. Did you ever have the tablet? Let me know. I want to know if you had the tablet. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you sitting here with me for this very thorough rise and fall of Sprout TV. If you have other video ideas, please comment below. I've got a couple videos that I'm working on, and some are time sensitive due to books coming out and probably their content destroying everything that I've written for an essay, but whatever. Toss the notification bell into the sea. Subscribe, like, whatever it is that YouTube wants you to do. Make sure you hydrate, because otherwise you will dehydrate. And I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye!